The lead up to the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, has highlighted the social unrest in this country, and now activists are really worried because the government of Dilma Rousseff has put forward legislation that tries to define terrorism. Now, what is the problem with this? The problem with this is that these activists believe that it's an effort of the government to silence those who dissent. Now, Margaret, we have to give the context of the situation of Dilma Rousseff. Dilma Rousseff is a president that has 8% approval rate, the lowest in the modern government of Brazil. Now, we've seen hundreds of thousands of people go out on the streets asking for her impeachment. And now her government put forward...
You're all terrorists. That's what
they're all terrorists. If you come out to the streets, and here's what they are really worried about. They are worried about that this bill gives the authorities the power to arrest and charge people as terrorists should the tiniest amount of damage results from a heated protest. Mm-hmm. So basically, what we saw during the World Cup, this heavy protest where they were damaged, everyone involved will be or could be charged for 30 years behind bars as a terrorist.
Well, terrorism is a term that can be applied to anything you want it to be applied to if you're in power. We've seen that time and again. You know, and that's what she's doing, in effect. You were absolutely right. Lowest approval rating since 1985, since the military dictatorship ended in Brazil. And counterterrorism, it should in theory mean you can't bomb this event, but what it's become is, you know, the counterterrorism effort on the part of them, you can't protest this event, you know, so we're seeing that post move to mean whatever they want. In my opinion, it's because of the bad press that they got after the World Cup. You know, people were coming out and saying, look what's happening in Brazil. People are starving. They don't have anything. You know, their government hates them, and we're putting these big expensive events there, and maybe we shouldn't be. So they're trying to get ahead of that curve, you know, coming up upon the Olympics, and that's what she's doing.
Exactly, and there's 80 different social and political organizations that are not happy with what she's doing. They say that this is only another effort of her government to quash dissent and that they won't take it. Also, there's this very interesting line of thought in between the critics that this new legislation, it's only a way to obey the recommendation that the Financial Action Task Force put forward. The Financial Action Task Force is a global think tank that puts forward recommendations for different governments around the world on how to deal with terrorism. And mainly it deals with the financial arms of terrorist organizations, how to teach or help governments define policy that prevents these terrorist groups from gaining access to funds. Now, these critics say that this new effort to define terrorism is only a way that the Brazilian government is folding to this organization, because if you don't comply, you get sanctions. And in the recession that Brazil is at right now, the government of Dilma Rousseff does not want anything else to get the people angry.
Well, of course not. I mean, she needs a happy little crowd until after the Olympics. But more importantly, you know, this aspect of calling activism terrorism, that should be very troubling to anybody hearing this story, because there comes a certain point where freedom of speech will become an act of terrorism if the world keeps going in this direction.
And we've seen it before in many different places around the world where there's gag laws that prevent people from going out to the streets and protesting and making their mind be heard. But we want to know your thoughts. What do you think about the organization of the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Olympic Games? We've seen bad quality in the water for the sports. We've seen forced evictions, and now a new way to define terrorism that might prevent activists from protesting at the Olympic Games to gain global exposure. Let us know in the comments below. And if you haven't, please subscribe to the Lib TV 2.